Have you ever wondered, can silence make a sound? In the frozen darkness of Alaska, even the quiet seems alive. The air tastes like ice and distance, broken only by the lone howl of a wolf somewhere far away. Out there, beneath the endless sky, something moves between the trees. Locals say it's not nature that rules this land. It's something older, something that watches. And those who've seen it, they never look the same again. Tonight, we step into the true horror stories buried deep in Alaska's frozen wilderness, where the line between reality and nightmare disappears. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there, and subscribe to our channel for more horror stories that'll keep you up at night. I used to think the Alaskan wilderness couldn't scare me. I'd spent 15 years working as a wildlife field technician, tracking wolves and bears through some of the most remote terrain in North America. I'd slept through blizzards, crossed frozen rivers in pitch darkness, and patched up more busted snowmobiles than I could count. Out there, fear was a luxury. You either learned to control it, or you didn't make it back. But nothing in those 15 years prepared me for what happened near the Kuskokwim River in 2018. It started as a routine survey trip. Just me, a GPS unit, a tent, and 3 days of solitude. The state had hired me to document wolf activity after several reported livestock attacks in the area. I'd done hundreds of these surveys before. The only difference this time was that the nearest human settlement was over 70 miles away, an old mining town that had been mostly abandoned since the late 80s. The last stretch of trail, a narrow snow-covered road through black spruce, felt like the end of the world. By mid-afternoon, the sky was already bruising over with that deep Alaskan twilight. I remember the sound of my snowmobile's engine echoing off the frozen trees, the steady hum cutting through miles of silence. The air smelled like diesel and pine resin. Every exhale formed clouds that vanished as quickly as they came. When I finally set up camp near the riverbank, I felt the kind of stillness that only exists when you're hundreds of miles from anyone else. No power lines, no planes overhead, just the wind brushing the treetops and the occasional crack of ice shifting in the current. I radioed in my coordinates, signed off, and began prepping for nightfall. As I unrolled my sleeping bag, I noticed something odd, a faint set of snowshoe tracks leading out from the tree line about 30 yards from my tent. They weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. Maybe a week, maybe less. That alone wasn't strange. Trappers and hunters sometimes pass through these areas. But what made me pause was their direction. The prints didn't lead anywhere. They just stopped, dead center on the frozen river, like whoever made them had vanished mid-step. I stood there for a while, my breath turning white in the dimming light, scanning the dark line of the forest. The woods were silent, too silent. Even the ravens that usually haunted the treetops were gone. I told myself it was nothing. Probably melting and refreezing had obscured the trail. Still, when I crawled into my tent that night, I zipped the flap a little tighter than usual and kept my radio within arm's reach. The next morning, I woke up to a faint humming noise. At first, I thought it was the wind against the tent fabric, but when I unzipped the flap, I realized it was something mechanical, steady, distant, rhythmic, maybe another snowmobile. That shouldn't have been possible. There wasn't supposed to be anyone else within 50 miles. The sound faded before I could pinpoint the direction. The morning light was dim, almost metallic, the kind that flattens everything into shades of gray. I brewed coffee on the camp stove, telling myself it had probably been an echo. Sound travels strangely out here. Sometimes your own engine noise bounces back hours later. Still, that tight feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. Around noon, I began tracking wolf prints near the edge of the river. They ran parallel to those old snowshoe tracks I'd seen the night before. I followed them for nearly a mile until something caught my eye. An orange tarp half buried under snow, maybe 50 feet off the trail. It was staked down sloppily, like it had been thrown up in a hurry. My first thought was that it belonged to another surveyor or a hunter caught in bad weather. I called out, "Hello, anyone out there?" Nothing. Just the soft moan of the wind across the ice. I hesitated before walking closer. The tarp had partially collapsed, but there were clear signs someone had been camping there recently. A small fire pit, a cracked thermos, a pair of gloves stiff with frost. And then I noticed the boot prints. Not snowshoes this time, regular boots. Heavy ones. They led away from the camp toward the tree line and disappeared into a stretch of black spruce so thick it looked almost like a wall. Something about it felt wrong. The fire pit was fresh, but there was no gear left behind. No sleeping bag, no sled, nothing you'd expect if someone had gone hunting or gotten lost. It was as if they'd stood up, walked into the woods, and never come back. When I got back to my tent that afternoon, my GPS tracker had shut itself off. The battery was fine, but the display was frozen, just a blank dead screen. My radio, too, was filled with static no matter what channel I turned to. That night, I kept the fire going later than usual. The temperature had dropped below zero, and the stars were sharp as needles above the treetops. Around midnight, I thought I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate crunching in the snow, just beyond the circle of light. I called out again, louder this time. "Hello? Who's there?" No answer, just the sound of breathing, not mine. Close enough that I could hear the faint hitch in the exhale, like someone trying to stay quiet. Then it stopped. I didn't sleep at all after that. Part 2. By dawn, I'd convinced myself it had to have been an animal, maybe a moose or a bear drawn to the smell of my food. Still, I couldn't shake the image of those boot prints, the frozen radio, the sound of someone breathing just outside my tent. I packed up faster than I ever had before and started my snowmobile toward the river trail. The machine sputtered once, then caught, coughing out plumes of gray smoke into the pale morning air. About 2 miles down the river, I saw something that made me ease off the throttle. There, right in the center of the frozen channel, was a snowmobile. It was half buried in powder, the windshield cracked, the seat ripped open like it had been clawed. At first, I thought it might have been abandoned for years, but there were fresh tracks around it. Boot prints again. 2 sets this time. One set leading toward the tree line, the other leading toward me. My heart started to pound. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the endless white, but there was nothing. No movement, no sound. Just that feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. I kicked the throttle and tore off down the river, the machine vibrating beneath me, the wind burning my face raw. A few minutes later, I saw something ahead, a flicker of red against the snow. I thought it might be a marker flag or part of someone's gear. But when I got closer, my stomach dropped. It was a jacket, bright red, frozen stiff, zipped up tight with the sleeves spread wide like someone had fallen backward into the snow and never gotten up. No body, just the jacket. That's when I heard the snowmobile again, the same humming I'd heard the day before. This time it wasn't distant. It was coming from the woods to my left. I killed my engine and listened. The hum grew louder, then cut off abruptly. Then came the footsteps, slow, heavy, crunching closer through the trees. I fumbled for the flare gun in my pack, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. "I'm armed," I shouted, voice cracking. "Don't come any closer." Nothing. Then, a man's voice, hoarse, ragged, just above a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." He stepped out from between the trees, a tall man in a filthy parka, face hidden behind frost-caked goggles. His gloved hands were empty, but there was something in the way he moved, steady, deliberate, that made my blood run cold. "I'm just doing a survey," I managed. "You okay? You need help?" He tilted his head, like the question didn't make sense. Then he took another step closer. That's when I saw what was behind him. 2 more figures, dressed the same way. Heavy coats, faces covered, standing motionless among the trees. I fired the flare. It screamed into the air, a burst of red light painting the snow and the river in a blood-colored glow. The men didn't flinch. They just stood there watching me until the light faded, and then they started walking, slowly, side by side, toward the river. I didn't wait. I hit the throttle, and the snowmobile lurched forward. I could hear them shouting behind me, their voices distorted by the wind. A gunshot cracked through the air, echoing off the frozen banks. Ice splintered near my sled, sending shards flying up into my face. I didn't look back again. I just kept driving. By the time I reached the old mining road, my gas gauge was almost empty and my hands were numb. I didn't stop until I saw the flickering orange light of a ranger outpost in the distance, half buried in snow but alive with the hum of a generator. When the ranger came out to meet me, I could barely speak. My teeth were chattering so hard I bit my tongue. I told him what I'd seen, about the tracks, the camp, the men in the woods. He listened quietly, then nodded slowly. "You did the right thing," he said. "You're lucky you got out of there. We've had reports of something similar. Illegal trappers, maybe. But no one's ever caught them." I asked if anyone had gone missing recently. He just stared at me for a long time before shaking his head. "Not that we know of," he said, "but people disappear out here all the time." The state troopers arrived the next morning, flown in by helicopter. They questioned me for hours, every detail about what I'd seen, where I'd camped, what direction the men had gone. I gave them my coordinates, pointed out the location of the abandoned snowmobile and the red jacket. They assured me they'd send a team to check it out once the weather cleared. They let me warm up inside the ranger cabin while they relayed everything over the radio. I remember staring at the frost gathering on the inside of the window, trying to convince myself that what I'd seen had a rational explanation. Maybe illegal trappers, like the ranger said. Maybe someone desperate living off the grid. But deep down, I knew better. By late afternoon, the wind picked up and visibility dropped to almost nothing. The helicopter crew decided to postpone their search until morning. One of the troopers, a guy named Keller, sat across from me sipping burnt coffee. "You said there were 3 of them?" he asked. "Yeah, maybe more. I didn't stick around to count." He nodded, writing something in his notebook. "Funny thing," he said. "You mentioned hearing another snowmobile. When we checked the airspace radar, there wasn't anyone else registered within a 100-mile radius." That night, I didn't sleep much. The generator kept cutting out, and every time it did, the silence felt too heavy, like the world outside was holding its breath. Around 2 a.m., I went to the window. Snow was whipping across the yard in white sheets, and for a second, I thought I saw movement near the tree line. A faint shape, tall and still, facing the cabin. When I blinked, it was gone. The next morning, the troopers returned from their search. They'd found the snowmobile I'd described, but no sign of the jacket, the camp, or any tracks. The storm had wiped everything clean. Keller told me they'd keep the report open, but not to expect much. "Out here," he said, "things disappear fast. People too." I left Alaska a week later, told my supervisor I was done with solo fieldwork. I'd seen enough wilderness for a lifetime. But even now, years later, I still think about that night by the river. The sound of footsteps in the snow, the man's voice telling me I shouldn't be there. Last winter, I had to drive through Anchorage for a conference. On a whim, I took a detour along one of the back roads near the Kuskokwim. The sky was the same dull gray, and the snow along the ditches looked untouched. As I slowed the truck, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. 2 distant headlights behind me, small but steady, following the same curve in the road no matter how fast I went. When I turned off toward town, the lights vanished, just gone. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I still hear that humming noise, faint and rhythmic, like an engine idling far off in the cold. And I wonder if those men ever stopped watching. Part 4. I've spent most of my adult life in the Alaskan bush, flying bush planes for freight runs, medevac rescues, and remote deliveries. 19 years of navigating storms, engine failures, and ice landings. If something could go wrong up here, I'd seen it. Fear becomes background noise after a while. Until one winter night in 2021, when a charter run from Fairbanks to a remote fishing camp made me believe in something worse than mechanical failure. The job was simple. Fly a crate of supplies to a seasonal camp off the Kobuk River, about 200 miles northwest. The forecast showed clear skies. I took off just before dusk, the horizon bleeding orange and blue, snow glowing beneath the wings like a frozen ocean. By the time I reached the foothills, the world had gone quiet. Just the soft buzz of the Cessna engine and the faint rattle of loose gear in the back. From above, Alaska looks endless. Miles of white tundra, rivers like veins of silver, mountains sharp as broken glass. The radio static was clean, the air crisp and thin. But as I neared the drop zone, I realized something wasn't right. The camp's beacon light wasn't on. Every registered outpost keeps one, especially in winter. I circled twice, scanned the area with my spotlight, but saw nothing. No lights, no motion. Just a dark patch of forest along the frozen riverbank. Fuel was low, so I had no choice but to land. I found a stretch of ice flat enough to use as a makeshift runway and brought the plane down hard. The landing skids screeched, the tail kicked up a cloud of snow, and the world fell silent again. I killed the engine and stepped out into air so cold it burned my lungs. The only sound was the creaking of the river beneath my boots. The cabin was supposed to be 200 yards from the landing point. I followed the faint outline of a snowmobile trail through the trees until I saw it. A small log building half buried under snow, the front door hanging open. A dim light flickered inside, like a candle struggling against the wind. "Hello?" I called out. "Delivery from Fairbanks." No answer, just the wind pushing through the trees, whistling through cracks in the cabin walls. I stepped inside and immediately noticed the smell: kerosene, sweat, and something metallic, sharp, like dried blood. The place looked lived in but abandoned in a hurry. A pot still sat on the stove, half-frozen water inside. A coat draped over a chair. And then on the wall, a map with circles drawn in red marker, dozens of them, all around the Kobuk River. I was still staring at it when I heard the faint crunch of snow outside. The sound came again. 2, maybe 3 slow steps, deliberate, pacing near the door. My heart started hammering in my chest. I leaned toward the window, careful not to make a sound. Outside, barely visible in the moonlight, was a snowmobile parked about 20 feet from the cabin. The engine wasn't running, but the tail light was still glowing red. I waited, holding my breath until I saw movement near the tree line. Someone, or something, was standing there. A tall figure, completely still, facing the cabin. I called out, "Hey, you at the camp?" No response. The red light on the snowmobile blinked once, then went dark. The silence after that was unbearable. The only thing I could hear was my own pulse, loud in my ears. I decided I'd stay inside until sunrise, then take off. I wasn't sticking around to play games in the middle of nowhere. I checked the back room for a working radio and found one half buried under a pile of maps. It buzzed with static when I switched it on, but after a few seconds, a faint voice came through. A man's voice, whispering so quietly I almost didn't catch it. "Get out of there." I froze. "Who is this?" Static swallowed the signal. I banged the radio, tried to reset the frequency, but the message didn't repeat. That's when the cabin light flickered again. This time, it wasn't the candle. It was something outside the window. A beam of light sweeping slowly across the snow like someone walking with a flashlight. I killed my headlamp and crouched by the wall, peering through a crack in the wood. The beam drifted closer to the cabin door, then stopped. Whoever it was, they were listening. I waited 5 full minutes before I moved. I crept back to the front window, glanced out again, and saw nothing. No light, no movement. Just that same motionless snowmobile, its red tail light glowing faintly again. I decided to make a break for it. My plane wasn't far, and if I could get it started, I'd be gone before whoever that was got close. I threw on my gloves, pushed open the door, and stepped into the freezing air. That's when I realized something that made my stomach twist. There were no footprints leading to the snowmobile, My brain scrambled for logic. Maybe the snow had covered them, maybe I was imagining things, but the surface was smooth, untouched, like glass. The air felt heavier, pressing in from every direction. My breath fogged in front of me, catching the faint red reflection of that taillight. Then behind me, a sound split the quiet. A click, like a camera shutter. I spun around, flashlight jerking wildly across the trees. For a moment, I thought I saw someone. Just a silhouette between the trunks, tall, unmoving, watching. Then the light caught on something metallic hanging from a branch. It was an old camera, one of those trail cams used by hunters, half frozen and still recording. I took a cautious step forward, trying to convince myself it was nothing sinister, maybe left behind by a trapper. But as the beam landed on the camera lens, I saw a strip of frost-covered tape on the side, marked in red ink. Flight 67. That was my tail number. The sound of an engine cut through the stillness. The snowmobile roared to life, its red light flaring brighter, and I felt the ground tremble under my boots. I turned toward it just as the headlight flared on, blinding me. A figure was sitting on it now, helmeted, face hidden, motionless except for one gloved hand gripping the throttle. I didn't wait to see what they wanted. I bolted for the river, heart slamming against my ribs, lungs burning. My flashlight beam bounced erratically over the snow, catching glimpses of twisted branches, ice ridges, my own shadow stretching long and thin across the frozen expanse. The roar of the snowmobile closed in behind me, echoing off the ice like thunder. My plane was just ahead, small, white, half buried in powder. I dove toward it, yanking open the cockpit door and throwing myself inside. My fingers were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the keys. The engine coughed, stuttered, then caught with a ragged whine. Through the windshield, I saw two more snowmobiles emerge from the tree line, headlights cutting wide arcs through the snow. They moved in formation, closing fast. I jammed the throttle forward, the propeller screaming, the plane lurching ahead as the skids scraped along the ice. Something hit the tail, a sharp crack that sent a shudder through the fuselage. A gunshot. Another followed, splintering glass across my shoulder. I ducked, slammed the throttle harder, and the plane lifted, barely, skimming just above the frozen river. I didn't look back until I was 100 feet up. 3 snowmobiles, lined up on the ice below, their headlights motionless, forming a triangle around a single dark spot, the cabin. In the center of that triangle, a flare of red light pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat. Then it went out. When I reached Fairbanks just before dawn, I radioed the tower. My voice was shaking so bad the operator had to ask me to repeat myself twice. They logged my report, sent troopers to the coordinates I gave, but when they arrived, they said the river was bare. No snowmobiles, no cabin, just endless, untouched snow. They kept me at the station for nearly 12 hours, asking the same questions in different ways. Was I drinking? Could I have misjudged my position? Was it possible I landed at the wrong site? I told them everything, about the map, the radio voice, the snowmobiles, the gunshots. The lead trooper, a quiet guy named Riker, just stared at me for a long moment and finally said, "You know, that area you're talking about, we don't send people there anymore." When I pressed him, he explained that a team of biologists had gone missing near the Kobuk back in 2018. 3 researchers, last seen traveling upriver to study permafrost conditions. Their last transmission mentioned something about lights in the trees. They were never found. Riker promised they'd send another team, though the way he said it made me think he didn't expect much. I signed the incident report, handed over my flight log, and went home. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that red light pulsing on the ice, steady as a heartbeat. A week later, Riker called me back. He sounded uneasy. "We found something," he said, "about 3 miles from your coordinates." My chest tightened. He paused before continuing. "A wreckage. Small single-engine aircraft, registered to a pilot named..." He stopped, then asked quietly, "You ever lose a plane before, son?" I told him no. Not once. "The thing is," he said, "the tail number matches your Cessna." I didn't know what to say. I asked him to send a photo. When it came through, my hands went cold. The image showed a crumpled, half-buried aircraft with the same registration code as mine painted on the tail. Same color, same model. But the frame was rusted, corroded, like it had been there for years. Riker said the serial number plate was almost unreadable, but what they could make out suggested it had been manufactured in 2014, same as mine. He ended the call with a sigh. "Whatever you saw out there," he said, "I'd stay away from that stretch of river." That was 2 years ago. I grounded myself not long after. Sold the Cessna, moved south, told myself I was done flying. But Alaska has a way of staying with you. Some nights, when the wind howls outside and the power flickers, I swear I can hear that same faint hum of a snowmobile engine fading in and out like it's circling, waiting. A few months back, a friend from the Fairbanks hangar sent me a photo he took while flying supplies north. Just a blurry image of the tundra below. He thought I'd find it interesting. In the photo, near the frozen bend of the Kobuk River, there's a small, dark structure half buried in snow. A light glows faintly from inside, and next to it, in the snow, a single red circle has been drawn, clear as blood. Sometimes when the static hits my radio at night, I still hear that whisper. The same one from the cabin, quiet and strained but unmistakable. "Get out of there." I used to think I'd seen everything the Alaskan backcountry could throw at a man. I've been a highway maintenance foreman for the state since I was 22. 27 winters of plowing, patching, and pulling wrecks out of ditches. You stop getting scared after the first decade. Ice storms, moose collisions, drunks on snow tires made of balled rubber. Nothing surprises you. But what happened out on the Dalton Highway in 2019 still wakes me up some nights, sweating and gasping like the cold's right there in my lungs again. That winter was brutal. Temperatures never climbed above zero for nearly 3 weeks, and the wind screamed down from the Brooks Range like it was alive. I was part of a 2-man crew stationed between Coldfoot and Wiseman, about as isolated as you can get and still call it a road. We were checking snowdrift markers and clearing the pull-offs before a forecasted blizzard rolled in. I remember the sky looking heavy that morning, the kind of gray that makes the horizon disappear. We were about 20 miles north when the radio crackled with a weak signal. A female voice, calm, polite, too clear for how bad the reception usually was. This is Delta Station, requesting assistance on mile 209, vehicle disabled." I frowned. There's no Delta Station anywhere near that stretch. My partner, Russ, gave me a look and said, "You hear that?" I nodded. We tried to respond, but all we got back was static. Still, protocol said if someone was stranded, we checked it out. By the time we reached mile 209, the light was already fading. That far north, daylight dies fast in winter. And there it was, an old green SUV, parked sideways off the shoulder, one headlight still burning. The driver's door hung open. Russ killed the engine, and we both stepped out. The wind hit like knives. "Hello?" I shouted, scanning the tree line. Nothing, just the low groan of the wind scraping across the ice. The snow around the SUV was strange, smooth, untouched. No footprints, no sign anyone had walked away. Inside, the keys were still in the ignition, a thermos half full on the passenger seat and a purse in the back. Everything looked like someone had just stepped out for a second. Russ found a name on a registration slip. Ellen Marks Anchorage. He radioed dispatch to run it, but all we got was static again. Then, out of nowhere, our truck's lights flickered once and died. Total darkness. Only the faint glow of that single SUV headlight cutting through the snow. I remember the smell next, a sour metallic scent, like oil mixed with rot. The air got so still it felt wrong. Even the wind had stopped. Then I noticed something about 50 yards off the road, a faint orange glow deep between the trees. "Campfire?" Russ muttered. But the shape of the light wasn't right. It pulsed, dimmed, flared again, almost like a signal. We should have left right then. I knew it. But we were too used to cleaning up messes left by hunters, stranded tourists, guys who thought four-wheel drive made them invincible. So we went toward it. Each step crunched loud enough to echo. The beam of my flashlight cut through drifts taller than my knees. The glow grew brighter, warmer until I realized it wasn't firelight. It was an open tent lantern, hanging from a low branch, and right beneath it, a boot, half buried in the snow. Russ bent down to lift it, then stopped. "There's still a foot in here," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. The rest of the body was a few feet away, frozen stiff, eyes wide open. And here's the part that made no sense. The clothes matched the name on the SUV's registration. Ellen Marks. I remember Russ whispering, "Then who the hell called us?" The cold hit harder after that, like the whole forest exhaled all at once. I could hear my own pulse thudding in my ears. Russ backed away, shaking his head. "We need to call this in," he muttered. We hurried back toward the truck, but halfway there, Russ stopped dead. "You hear that?" he whispered. At first I thought it was the wind again. Then I realized it was coming from the SUV, the faint hum of the radio. We hadn't left it on. I walked closer, and sure enough, the dashboard light was glowing weakly, the radio crackling through static. Then that same female voice came through, clear as glass. "This is Delta Station, requesting assistance. Mile 209. The exact same words as before, same calm tone, same pause between syllables. Russ reached in and shut the radio off. The sound cut instantly, and the silence that followed was suffocating. I wanted to leave, just get back in our plow and drive until we hit the lights of town. But when I turned toward where our truck was parked, my heart nearly stopped. It wasn't there. The tire tracks were gone too, smooth snow stretching into the dark. I thought maybe we'd gotten turned around, that we'd walked farther than we realized, but no. I could see the same tire ruts from the SUV leading back toward the highway. And then nothing. Russ started yelling, angry, panicked. "Where's the goddamn truck?" His voice echoed through the trees, bouncing back at us from every direction. I forced myself to focus. "Let's move toward the road. Maybe the snow drifted over it." We pushed forward, our flashlights barely cutting through the blowing powder. The SUV's light faded behind us until the forest swallowed it. And then up ahead, we saw something glinting under the beam of Russ's light. It was metal, a signpost. The reflective letters read, Mile 209. We both froze. "That's impossible," I said. We'd walked away from the marker, not toward it, yet somehow we were back where we started. The SUV stood just a few yards away, idling now, both headlights on. The driver's door creaked open, slow and deliberate, like someone inside was pushing it. But there was no one there. Then the voice came again, this time, not from the radio, but from right beside the car. "This is Delta Station." It was identical. Same pitch, same rhythm, like a recording. Russ turned his flashlight toward the sound, and that's when we saw movement. Something crouched low by the front bumper, pale and thin, its back to us. Its arms moved stiffly, jerking, like it was pretending to fix the engine. Russ took one step forward and the thing stopped moving. Slowly, it turned its head, but not all the way, just enough for me to see a slice of its face. The skin looked stretched, gray, lips frozen in a half smile. It whispered again, perfectly calm. Mile 209. We ran. I don't remember deciding to. My legs just moved. The trees blurred together, and every few seconds I swore I could hear footsteps in the snow behind us. Soft, steady, too controlled to be panicked. When we finally saw headlights through the trees, I nearly collapsed. A snowplow, one of ours, idling on the shoulder, cab lights glowing warm yellow. I sprinted to it, yanked the door open, and shouted for Russ to climb in. The seat was still warm, but no one was inside. Russ stumbled in behind me, slamming the door shut hard enough to rattle the glass. His face was white, his breath coming out in ragged bursts. I tried the ignition, half expecting nothing, but the engine started instantly, smooth as if it had never been turned off. The heater was still running, the radio set to our usual dispatch channel. I grabbed the mic and called it in. "Control, this is Highway Unit 7. We've got a code, possible fatality at mile 209. Copy?" Static. Then faintly a man's voice broke through. "Unit 7, say again? You're not..." The rest cut off in static. "Jesus Christ," Russ muttered. He looked out the windshield. "We need to move." I threw the plow in gear, turning us toward the main road. The SUV's headlights were gone now, swallowed by snow and darkness. As the tires bit into the ice, I caught sight of something in the rearview mirror, just a shape, standing in the middle of the road where the car had been. Tall, still watching us. The red glow of its eyes, no, not eyes, taillights from the SUV reflected off the frost. Then both lights blinked out at once. We drove for what felt like hours, but the odometer barely moved. No signs, no junctions, no other vehicles. Every curve looked identical, every ridge of snow like a copy of the last. It was as if the highway had become a loop. Russ started mumbling under his breath. "We're not getting out. We're not getting out." I tried to calm him. "It's just the storm, we're disoriented." But when I looked down, the dashboard clock made my stomach drop. It hadn't changed in over an hour. The second hand was frozen, then the radio crackled again. A voice came through, calm and measured. Female. "Unit 7, this is Delta Station. Report status." Russ's eyes went wide. I grabbed the mic. "Who is this?" Silence. Then the same line, identical. "Unit 7, this is Delta Station. Report status." The voice wasn't coming from dispatch. It was our own radio playback looping our signal. I shut it off, but the voice kept talking, now from the truck's speakers, though the radio was dead. "Report status." The headlights flickered once, twice. Outside, snow was falling heavier, thick flakes spinning in the high beams. And then, through that curtain of white, I saw shapes, 5, maybe 6, standing along the shoulder of the highway. They were spaced evenly, about 10 feet apart, each one facing the road. None of them moved. The snow piled on their shoulders, their heads tilted slightly downward, like they'd been standing there for hours. I slowed the truck to a crawl. The beam caught one of their faces. It was gray, frostbitten, lips split and black. Its eyes were open but cloudy, staring right through us. Russ whispered, "Don't stop." But as we passed the last figure, it lifted its head. Every radio in the cab came alive at once, a burst of static so loud it made us flinch. And underneath it, that same voice again, calm and steady. "Mile 209, vehicle disabled." Russ lost it. He reached for the door handle, yelling that we had to run for it. I grabbed his arm. "You open that door, you're dead." But before I could stop him, the handle snapped down on its own. The door flew open against the wind. Something reached in, gray hand, nails black and cracked, grabbing his sleeve. I heard him scream, high and broken, as he was yanked out into the dark. I lunged after him, but the door slammed shut in my face so hard the glass shattered. Through the broken window, I caught one last glimpse of Russ being dragged across the snow by something that looked almost human. Except its face was wrong, stretched too long, the mouth frozen mid-smile. Then everything went dark. I'd spent nearly 20 years as a search and rescue pilot in Alaska before I finally quit. I thought I'd seen the worst. Plane crashes and blizzards, hunters lost for weeks, hikers frozen solid to tree trunks. But there's one call that never left me. It was February 2020, the night we flew into the Hatcher Pass Range looking for a missing snow machiner. The guy's name was Dan Bowers, a contractor from Wasilla. His wife said he'd gone out early to photograph the aurora and never came home. The storm rolling in was one of those whiteouts that can swallow whole towns, but command wanted eyes in the air before it hit. I told them we'd be fast, 30 minutes tops. My co-pilot that night was a kid named Mateo, new to Alaska but sharp. We took off in a Bell 4 and 12, skimming low over the Matsu Valley. lights from Palmer glowing faint behind us. The wind picked up fast once we hit the ridges, slamming the fuselage like open hands. Snow blew sideways across the windshield, the spotlight beam catching only fragments of rock and ice. We followed the coordinates Dan's GPS tracker had last pinged, an old mining trail that ran between two glacial valleys. It was pitch black except for the faint green shimmer of the northern lights crawling across the clouds. Somewhere out there, a single man was freezing to death, and we were his only shot. At 10:47 p.m., the tracker beeped. Mateo leaned forward. Got him. Signals less than half a mile ahead. I brought us down near a narrow valley floor, between walls of jagged ice. The landing was rough but steady. Snow muffled everything the moment the rotors slowed, just dead silence and the sound of my own breath in the headset. We stepped out into the dark, flashlights cutting thin tunnels of light through the snow. About 50 yards ahead, we saw it. Dan's snow machine, half buried on its side, light still on. The tracks leading away from it wandered into the canyon and vanished. I called out, voice echoing off the walls. Dan, Alaska Rescue, can you hear me? Nothing. Then Mateo pointed upward. There was a cave mouth about 30 feet up, a narrow black gap in the ice wall. The beam of his flashlight caught something inside. Movement. Like someone ducking back out of sight. We started climbing. The closer we got, the colder it felt. The air had that heavy stillness that comes right before a storm, and I could hear a faint sound coming from the cave. Something rhythmic, wet. At first I thought it was dripping water, but the closer we got, the more it sounded like breathing. I shouted again, Dan, we're here to help. The breathing stopped. For a few seconds there was nothing. Just the hiss of wind funneling through the canyon and the crunch of our boots on ice. Then the sound came back. Closer this time. Slow, deliberate breaths echoing from deep inside the cave. Mateo froze halfway up the slope. That's not wind, he whispered. We reached the opening, flashlights slicing through the dark. The walls inside were slick and narrow, carved by centuries of glacial melt. The air smelled strange, metallic, sharp, like blood and diesel. Dan, I called again, softer this time. It's rescue. You're not in trouble. Just talk to us. Silence. Then, somewhere in the dark ahead, a voice answered. Over here. It was faint but calm, almost casual. Definitely a man's voice. Mateo's light swung toward it, but the tunnel bent left, disappearing into blackness. Keep your line of sight, I said. We go slow, no surprises. We moved deeper. Every sound was amplified. The scuff of our boots, the drip of meltwater, the rasp of my breath against the mask. About 30 feet in, the tunnel opened into a small chamber. And there he was, or at least I thought so at first. A man sat against the far wall, parka hood up, head bowed. His snow machine helmet lay cracked beside him. His gloves were off, hands resting in his lap. Dan? I said, kneeling a few feet away. You okay? He didn't answer. I reached out, touched his shoulder, and my fingers sank into something cold and stiff. The body tipped sideways and hit the ice with a hollow thud. His face was frozen solid, eyes wide, mouth open like he'd died mid-breath. Mateo swore under his breath. Christ, how long's he been dead? That's when the radio on my shoulder crackled. A man's voice, same tone, same calmness, came through the static. This is Dan Bowers. I see you. Mateo and I locked eyes. The transmission wasn't coming from command, it was a direct signal. Who is this? I demanded, pressing the mic. Identify yourself. Static. Then, again, clearer this time. I see you. We both turned back toward the cave entrance. And that's when I noticed something else. There were footprints in the snow behind us. Fresh ones. Leading deeper into the tunnel. Not out. Mateo swung his light around just in time to catch movement. Something tall, stepping out of the dark. It moved wrong, slow but sure, as if it didn't need to rush. The beam caught its parka first, the same color and model as the dead man's. "Dan?" Mateo said weakly. The figure stopped. For a moment I thought maybe he was alive, that we'd found him just in time. Then he lifted his head. His skin was pale, waxy, stretched too tight over the bone. His eyes reflected the flashlight beam like an animal's, and when he spoke, the voice was exactly what we'd heard over the radio. "I told you," he said, smiling faintly. "I see you." Mateo shouted and stumbled back, his boots sliding on the ice. The thing, whatever it was, moved forward one slow step at a time, head cocked slightly to the side, that same half-smile frozen on its face. Its parka was ripped open across the chest, but there was no blood, just a dark frost-caked hollow where the skin should have been. I raised my flashlight higher, hand shaking. "Stay where you are!" I shouted. "Don't move!" It didn't stop. It took another step closer. Mateo drew his flare gun, fired without hesitation. The cave exploded in red light for half a second, enough to see every detail I wish I could forget. The thing's face wasn't just pale, it was empty, hollow around the eyes, like the ice itself had taken his shape and was wearing it. And it didn't flinch, not once. Then the flare fizzled, plunging us back into darkness. The sound that came next wasn't human. It was a wet, low rasp that echoed off the walls. I grabbed Mateo's arm. "We're getting out of here, now!" We ran. My flashlight beam jerked wildly across the tunnel walls, catching glimpses of the ice shifting behind us. The footsteps followed, steady, scraping. Not running, not stumbling, just walking, as if it knew we'd tire before it did. We hit the mouth of the cave and nearly slid down the embankment. The storm had arrived full force, snow whipping in sheets. The helicopter was just a pale outline below, lights blinking through the whiteout. "Go!" I yelled. We half ran, half slid down the slope. The wind roared so loud it swallowed everything. But even through that, I could still hear the crunch of footsteps behind us, calm and unhurried. By the time we reached the chopper, Mateo was bleeding from a cut on his temple, his face white with shock. He dove into the cockpit and started the startup sequence while I scanned the ridge. The cave entrance was barely visible through the storm, but there was something standing there. A dark figure, tall and still, watching. I climbed in, slammed the door, and we lifted off fast. Too fast. The rotor blades kicked up a swirl of snow that erased the valley below. For a moment I felt relief until the radio crackled again. "This is Dan Bowers," the voice said. "Why are you leaving?" Mateo's eyes went wide. I shut that off. The voice came again, clearer this time. "It's cold up here. You'll crash if you go higher." Then the gauges started flickering. Altimeter, compass, even the backup nav, all over the place. The warning alarms screamed. Mateo fought the controls, shouting, "We're losing hydraulics." And underneath the blaring, the same calm voice whispered through the static, "Don't leave me." The chopper lurched hard right, tail spinning. I saw the mountain ridge flash once in the searchlight, and then everything went white. When I came to, the world was silent. The helicopter lay on its side, rotors twisted like broken ribs. My legs were half buried in snow, and the air was thick with the smell of fuel and burnt metal. The storm had passed, leaving that eerie post-blizzard stillness. No wind, no movement, just the creak of cooling metal. "Mateo?" I croaked. My throat felt raw. No answer. I crawled through the wreckage until I found him. He was still strapped in his seat, eyes open, body stiff. Frost had already formed on his lashes. His headset was dangling by the cord, earpiece still faintly hissing with static. Then I heard it again. "Don't leave me." The same voice, soft and calm, whispering through the broken comm. I ripped the headset off and threw it into the snow. It didn't matter. The sound didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was coming from outside. I turned toward the ridge above the wreck. The cave was gone, buried under fresh snow, but a single dark figure stood where the entrance had been. No movement, no face visible, just standing, arms at its sides, watching. I tried the emergency flare, hoping to scare it off, but my hands were shaking too bad to aim. The flare hissed, casting red light across the slope, and for one brief second, I saw more figures behind it. 3, no, 4, all motionless, all facing me. The flare died, and the dark closed in again. I remember running then, don't know how far or for how long, until I saw headlights cutting through the fog. A snowcat crew from the rescue station found me staggering along the trail, half frozen, delirious. They said I'd been missing for 36 hours. The chopper had gone down 20 miles east of where the signal first came in. There was no cave, no snow machine, no footprints except mine and Mateo's. When I told them about the voice and the man in the parka, they exchanged a look and said nothing. But one of the older guys, a local, muttered something as they loaded me into the sled. "Hatcher Pass," he said quietly. "That place keeps what it wants." A month later, during the investigation, they pulled the chopper's flight recorder. Most of it was static, just the sounds of the storm, the crash, and faint background interference. But right before the final signal cut out, a male voice whispered through the channel, "Cold up here, I see you." I quit flying after that, sold my gear, left the service, moved down to Juneau. Thought I'd never hear that voice again. But last winter, during a storm, I was sitting in my truck outside a gas station, idling the engine to stay warm. The CB radio I'd kept out of habit crackled once, then went quiet, and then faintly, like a breath on glass. "Why'd you leave me?" I worked oil pipelines across Alaska for most of my life. 26 years on the line from Prudhoe Bay down to Valdez, patching leaks, inspecting welds, and clearing ice buildup. It's lonely work, but I liked it that way. You get used to the silence, the kind that hums in your ears like pressure in a plane. But there's one stretch of pipeline, about 20 miles outside of Deadhorse, that I'll never go near again. It started during a late-season maintenance run in 2017. A small crew of us, just me, Dale, and a rookie named Carson, were assigned to check Line 5 for frost cracks after a minor quake. We had a company cabin halfway up the access road, a prefab unit the size of a trailer, with a generator that barely held on through the night. We set out before dawn, headlights cutting through the kind of fog that moves like smoke. The road was nothing but packed snow and frozen ruts, and the only sound was the hum of the engine and the radio static. You don't see much life that far north. No birds, no trees, just endless white and the faint metallic ribbon of the pipeline slicing across it. Around mile marker 42, Dale spotted something ahead, a truck parked sideways across the access road. Old model Ford caked in frost, no lights on. He slowed. "Anyone supposed to be out here?" he asked. "No one but us," I said. We climbed out, the cold biting through our gloves immediately. The air was sharp enough to burn your lungs. I walked around to the driver's side. The door hung open, creaking in the wind. The seat was empty, engine cold. But the weird thing was the inside. It was spotless. No coffee cup, no maps, no gear. Like nobody had ever driven it. Carson found a pair of boot prints leading away from the truck, heading off toward the pipeline. They were deep and far apart, like whoever made them was running. We followed, figuring maybe someone had gone for help and gotten lost. The fog got thicker the closer we got to the line. It was hard to tell sky from snow. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it, a low metallic clang echoing along the pipe. Once, then again. Dale turned to me. "You hear that?" Before I could answer, the sound came again, closer this time, like someone was hitting the pipeline from the inside. We reached the section we were scheduled to inspect, a long elevated span running over a shallow ravine. The footprints led right up to it and stopped. No turnoff, no sign of anyone leaving. Just gone. I remember looking down at the snow, trying to figure out how a man could just vanish, when the pipeline above me vibrated hard enough to make my teeth rattle. Then, from inside the steel, we heard a voice. "Help me." At first I thought it was just the wind howling through the pipe. Happens sometimes when the pressure shifts. But then it came again, clear this time. A man's voice, muffled but distinct. "Help me, please." Carson took a step back, eyes wide. "Is that someone in there?" We all stared at the line. The voice had come from the section right above the ravine, where the pipe rose off its supports and crossed a narrow gap. I could feel the vibration through my gloves, slow, rhythmic, like someone knocking from the inside. "Maybe someone fell in during maintenance," Dale said, but he didn't sound convinced. There was no hatch nearby, no manhole access for half a mile, and if anyone had been inside, the pressure would have killed them in seconds. The voice called again, weaker this time. "It's cold." Carson was shaking now. "We should call dispatch." I radioed it in, but all we got was static. No acknowledgement, no feedback tone, nothing. The signal should have been clear that close to the main relay. I switched frequencies, tried again. Same thing. That's when Dale climbed onto the pipe. "Maybe it's some kind of echo. Could be the metal contracting." "Dale, get down from there," I said. "You don't even know if that section's stable." He ignored me and crawled halfway across the span, the steel groaning under his weight. The fog had gotten so thick that his shape looked distorted, like he was moving through water. "Hello?" he shouted, pressing an ear to the pipe. "Can you hear me?" The voice came back instantly, clear enough for all of us to hear. "I can hear you." Dale froze. "What the hell?" The sound shifted, echoing down the length of the line like a whisper in a long tunnel. Then we heard it again, from behind us this time. Faint. Identical. "I can hear you." Carson spun around, flashlight beam slicing through the fog. There was nothing there, just endless white. "Stop screwing around," he yelled. Nobody moved. The pipeline vibrated again, harder this time, and a deep metallic groan rolled through the air. I swear I saw it flex, just slightly, like something massive was moving inside it. Dale scrambled back toward us, panic finally setting in. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." But as he jumped down, I noticed something on his coat sleeve, dark streaks, almost black, smeared across the fabric. He must have brushed against the underside of the pipe. I leaned closer, shining my light. It wasn't oil. It looked thicker, darker. It was blood. Before I could say anything, the radio on my belt crackled to life. A man's voice, same tone, same desperation, came through. "Don't leave me here." I looked at the channel display. It was broadcasting from our unit frequency. From my radio, the three of us stood frozen. The voice coming from my radio wasn't distorted or distant anymore. It sounded like it was right next to us. Each syllable was slow, deliberate, and shaking, like whoever it was had to fight for air. "Don't leave me here." Carson took a step back, staring at the radio as if it might explode. "That's impossible," he said. "Nobody else is on our channel." I turned the volume all the way down. The voice kept talking. "You can't leave. It's too cold." The words were faint now, but they weren't fading out. They were circling us, echoing across the fog. Then the pipeline groaned again, a long, low rumble that vibrated through my boots. Dale swung his flashlight down the line, and I caught a glimpse of movement in the fog. At first I thought it was just the mist shifting, but then it solidified, tall, human-shaped, moving along the pipeline on all fours. "Jesus Christ," Carson whispered. "What is that?" The shape was crawling inside the pipe. I could see its shadow through the thin frost on the metal, limbs pressing against the inside walls as it moved toward us. The clang of its hands, if they were hands, rang like hammer blows. "Back to the truck!" I shouted. Dale grabbed his pack and bolted first. Carson followed, tripping once on the frozen snow. I was right behind them, radio still crackling against my shoulder. The voice was louder now, no longer pleading, angry. "You opened it, you let it out." We reached the truck and slammed the doors. I turned the key, but the engine didn't even click. "Dead," The temperature gauge was already dropping, frost forming on the inside of the windshield. Dale fumbled with the heater switch, panic breaking through his usual calm. "We can't stay here, it'll freeze up." Then, from outside came a hollow bang against the truck bed. Once, twice, the same rhythm we'd heard in the pipe. Carson pressed his face to the glass. "Something's moving out there." I followed his gaze, and there it was, about 10 yards away, half hidden by fog. A figure crouched beside the pipeline, pale against the snow. I couldn't make out its face, but its arms looked too long, its movements jerky, like it was trying to mimic being human. It turned its head toward us slowly. The fog rippled around it, and then, in the same calm, hollow voice, it said, "It's warm in there." That broke me. I jammed the key again and again until finally, by some miracle, the engine coughed to life. Dale threw the truck in reverse, spinning us around so hard the tires screamed. As we sped off, I glanced back once. The fog behind us glowed faintly red, like something burning inside the pipe. And through it, I could still see that shape crawling along the metal, keeping pace with us, moving too smooth, too fast. Carson shouted, "It's following us!" I didn't look again. I just yelled, "Floor it!" The radio hissed once more before going silent. Then, right as the truck's tires hit the main access road, the voice came through one last time, this time from all 3 radios at once. "You can't bury it, it's already in the line." We didn't stop driving until we saw the faint lights of the pump station cutting through the fog. By then, Carson was crying quietly in the back seat, and Dale's hands were shaking so bad he could barely shift gears. The truck's heater was blasting full force, but the air inside still felt cold, like something was sucking the warmth right out of it. When we pulled into the yard, one of the night supervisors came out, waving a flashlight. "You boys look like hell," he said. "What happened?" None of us answered at first. We just sat there, staring at the steam curling off the hood. I finally managed to say, "There's something wrong with Line 5. They sent another crew out the next morning. I begged them not to go, but nobody listens to panic until they see proof. The team reported the same abandoned truck we'd found, but the footprints? Gone. Not even a dent in the snow where we'd walked. And the section of pipeline we'd inspected? It was clean. No dents, no frost cracks, no sign of damage. Except for one thing. The metal surface had long streaks running down it, like something had been dragged along from the inside. When they tested the residue, it wasn't oil or corrosion. They couldn't even identify it. We were questioned for hours. The company thought maybe we'd had a carbon monoxide leak in the truck and hallucinated. They grounded us for a week. Dale quit the next day, packed up his gear and drove south without saying a word. Carson lasted a few months longer. Then one morning, they found his trailer empty. Keys on the table, lights still on. No note, no sign of struggle. Just gone. Me? I stayed. Maybe I was too stubborn or too stupid. I kept working the line another year, but I never went near mile 42 again. I'd take the long route, drive hours out of the way just to avoid that stretch. Then, last winter, I was up near Fairbanks on a maintenance job. Routine inspection, nothing special. I was walking the line with a new guy when my radio crackled. "Line pressure nominal," I said automatically, thinking it was dispatch. But what came through wasn't dispatch. It was a man's voice, faint and familiar. "Don't leave me here." My stomach dropped. The new guy heard it too. He looked at me, confused. "Who was that?" he asked. I told him to shut the radio off. He did, but the static didn't stop. It rose higher, louder, until it almost sounded like metal screaming. That night, as I packed to leave camp, I looked out toward the line. Even from a mile away, I could see a faint glow pulsing inside the pipe, like light trapped behind steel moving slowly north. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I picture it. Whatever's inside there, still crawling through the dark, carried mile after mile through frozen ground, following the flow south. and I swear when the wind dies down just right, you can hear it echo under your feet. Knock, knock.